Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today, we'll be talking about the fight against terrorism. There are reports that two of our brave soldiers were martyred during an operation which we call the intelligence-based combing operation, though this has been a very regular feature now. Attacks on our men in uniform, attacks on their checkpoints, attacks on so many other military facilities, that has become a norm. Though we have tried our level best to make sure that the soil of Afghanistan should not be used against Pakistan. But still, there are certain pockets inside Afghanistan, in the bordering area of Pakistan, where there are the hideouts of these miscreants and these terrorists. It isn't only about Al-Qaeda or Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan or certain other splinter groups like Daesh for that matter, or ISK, the Khorasan chapter, but now BLA, Balochistan Liberation Army. These are the forces which are against the sovereignty of Pakistan. If you remember, yesterday there was this blast, a suicidal blast, and committed by a female. And that female was pretty educated also. She was a mother of two, that's what we learned. Her family had a lot of doctors and professors, interestingly. And she blew herself in Karachi University. And she particularly targeted a van in which there were 3 Chinese professors. All of them were killed, along with the driver who was driving the car, and the passerbys were also injured. According to certain reports, the total death toll is around 5. The point now is that what is behind all this? Obviously, yes, the Indian phenomena is there, but they are using the Pakistani people. What exactly was brewing in her mind when she blew herself? That is a $1 million question. Who are these people? How they are trained? How they are financed? How come they end up getting the explosive? And on top of that, the Karachi police says that they had some sort of an information that there could be a terrorist activity. But again, remember Karachi University, a soft target. Secondly, killing of the Chinese professors who were teaching Confucius there. And we all know that that's a phenomena. Other than that, there are also very interesting reports that the problem is with the Baloch insurgency. Now, how to look after that, how to control that, and that seems to be the issue. Now, primarily when we talk about the initiatives taken by so many governments, in particular by the military of Pakistan, and that is about the fight against terrorism, the implementation of the rules that were set by the National Action Committee, basically looking after the National Action Plan. But still, there are a lot of loopholes, a lot of areas that need to be again revisited, and a proper policy should be made and then properly implemented. That holds the key. Now, to talk about this, let me quickly introduce you to our panelists. We have with us in our studio Yasir Janjua Saab, needs no introduction. He's a senior analyst and a regular guest in our programs. Janjua Saab, pleasure to have you on the show, sir. Thank you very much for your time. And we have with us Naela Chohan Saiba. She's a former ambassador, senior diplomat. She's joining us on the telephone. Ma'am, pleasure to have you, and thank you so much for your presence. And we have with us Parvez Jamil Mir Saab, PJ Mir Saab, as he is known, senior journalist, senior analyst. Mir Saab, thank you so much for your time, sir. Pleasure to have you on the show. So if you allow me, let me put the first question to Mir Saab, and let me ask him about this new phenomena where females are being used as terrorist bombers, suicidal bombers, and those are pretty educated. And interestingly, as I earlier mentioned in my introduction, Mir Saab, this woman was not only educated, she was a mother of 2. Her family seems to be pretty educated, a lot of people in the medical field, other than that, professors. What exactly is going on, sir? What is this new phenomenon all about, Mir Saab?
An educated indoctrination. And this educated indoctrination is something which is new. It is a new phenomena which we are facing right now. And particularly in the light of this person who's educated and has a family, and look what she comes along and does it. Now, here, what we need to be doing is I've always maintained that from the grassroots level of backward areas or primitive areas, we need to be updating and upgrading the educational system. Until and unless we don't do that, we will have this sort of an inbreeding where there'll be dissidency, where there'll be insurgency, where there'll be all sorts of disturbances which will be created none other than by the Indians. Now, of course, it is a very fine window for the Indians to come along and operate in it. But then again, in the same breath, we shouldn't be India centric. We should be worrying about our own security and own security concerns, which unfortunately we do when the action takes place. We go up in the highest of security and then we go down into the lowest of those. Now, look at that. They know. And in guerrilla warfare, Faisal, one person is enough to take anybody on. Whereas, in a conventional war, you know what's coming along and you know what's going on. So here, what we need to be doing is, always be right up on the red as far as security is concerned, and as far as the Chinese, our visitors are concerned. And I'm so happy and so glad that now the foreign minister, uh, you know, Bilawal, Zardari Bhutto went to the Chinese embassy along with his minister of state and condoled. That was a very fine gesture, and I think this is how we need to be maintaining, diplomatic protocols. But besides that, you see, without, even by assuring people, foreigners and foreign embassies, we need to be continually, having security right up the top level. And may I dare say that in Pakistan, instead of a security guard challenging you and asking you for identity, what he does is he puts his hand out and shakes it with you. Well, I'm sorry, this sort of a tradition and work has to stop. No security official shakes your hand, no one in the world. And in fact, if you go down to any of the embassies, they'll straight away tell you either you move away or you'll be shot. Simple, no other question. And then you do the same as what you're required. But here, our security standards are quite different in comparison to the international market. So that is one thing. Secondly, we've got a lot of nationals. We've just encouraged a lot of people to come back into Pakistan. And these sorts of incidences, well, I'm sorry to say, they'll not go along with with the rest of the crew. Pakistan, as we all know, is a safe place, is one of the safest places in the world. But it's been misconstrued, it's been misrepresented by these nefarious elements who come along and destroy our international image.
Now, Mesab, one important factor. Obviously, Mesab really, has thrown light on the real issue. But, sir, earlier we used to hear that young kids as old as 13, 12, 14 years, and they had no clue what they were up to and they would blow themselves. So many kids have eventually killed many people in hujras, in mosques, and so many other places. This phenomenon of females, sir, because normally there's a tradition that females are not checked. It is a part of our culture. And whereas men are searched, the body search I'm talking about. In this case, sir, if there is a woman who sits in a rickshaw, travels anywhere, she can go anywhere. And perhaps this is not the first time that they will use a female. This is going to be a very regular phenomena now in the coming days as well. Issues on the western borders, issues on the eastern borders, so many other problems. But so, if you look at the doctrine of the Indian security chief or their national security advisor, even their prime minister, their external affairs minister, their home minister, they have always talked about, fueling this particular problem. And they believe that that's how they can put a check on the CPEC, they can put a check on the Balochistan's primarily what we call that the way Balochistan is progressing, even at a smaller level, but still there are hopes that things will get better and will improve in the future. Certainly this particular issue, sir, that means that in the coming days, we might see this more often. We were able to control this menace of terrorism to a very decent level, but sir, you can't control each and everything. Obviously, there's a filter process. Something is going to get out of that too.
Faisal, thank you very much. And before I start, I must say that I don't believe in lip service. So I'm a straight shooter, as you know, and I'll do some very hard talks. First and foremost, as you said, this phenomenon is new. It may be new in Pakistan, but worldwide or in the region as well, this is not a new phenomenon. Rajiv Gandhi was killed by a female suicide bomber. There were suicide bombers in Iraq, Syria, and where else?
Palestine.
Palestine, yeah, Palestine I was thinking. So the suicide bombing by females is not a new phenomenon. Now, as PJ was saying, educated indoctrination. How do we counter this educated indoctrination? Now, this is very serious. It's alarming that an educated woman, mother of 2 kids, her husband is a dentist, her father-in-law was a government officer, and there's a list of people in her family who are educated. And
the question is,
surprisingly,
how come she ended up doing it,
surprisingly, nobody in her distant family has ever been part of those missing persons lists. So why has she been so badly indoctrinated that she decided to take her own life, leaving her 2 children? Now, the question is, when I say straight shooter, what I mean to say is, now is a government in which we see Mr. Akhtar Mengal as part of the government, Shahzahan Bukhti as part of the government, Khalid Maksi as part of the government, and who else from Balochistan? Well, Mahmood Khan Achakzai and Maulana Fazlur Rehman has a very huge fan base in Balochistan.
Definitely, they have a huge following.
So, these are the people now they should come forward and address this. Military can only do as much as it can. As you've seen, this woman was standing on the roadside in Karachi. By the way, you must have seen Karachi University, I have. It's a huge campus.
Oh, yes.
It's a city in itself. And you cannot close the doors of Karachi University per se, because then there'll be massive chaos. So they have to unfortunately let people come into the Karachi University.
But Mesa, the fact is that she was waiting for that particular van in which there were 3 professors. Right. She must have done some sort of recce, because she recognized the exact van they were in.
This was well recognized.
The timing and everything. Yeah. So this wasn't like just a random attack or something.
This is what I'm saying. It's a public place. Karachi University is an educational institution. If that woman wearing that burqa or whatever that you call it was standing there, even if I was there from the security or law enforcement agencies, I couldn't go and ask her, who are you, what are you doing? Because there are hundreds of students standing like there. Now the question is, we have to do a root cause analysis. We don't have to do the cosmetic measures. The root cause analysis requires, forget about Afghanistan. Americans have gone from Afghanistan. Even if there is some presence of Daesh, as you were saying, in some provinces in Afghanistan, let there be, and there is a section of our government which is cooperating with the Afghan government to tackle that situation. What we need to do urgently, and this is what I have been saying in the previous programs, a lot of other people are saying, we have to hold the bull by the horns, we have to hold Balochistan. Have you heard the statement by the representative of Daesh, BLA, Majid?
Sir, I did.
So, he's clearly saying, Chinese, you leave Gwadar, Pakistan army, you leave Balochistan and blah, blah, blah. Whose language is he speaking? He is speaking the language of Indians and the Americans, those who don't want Gwadar to flourish, those who don't want Balochistan to flourish. How can we counter that? We can counter that militarily, yes, and what we are trying to do, Although, just to give you the numbers, in last 3 months, we have lost 120 soldiers. Shahadat of 120 soldiers is not a joke. We are giving sacrifices. The Pakistan Armed Forces and the law enforcement agencies are continuously giving sacrifices. These sacrifices will unfortunately not stop because the nature of the beast. This war is not going to stop overnight, that we switch off a button and it's going to stop. This is going to continue. What we need to do is not take the cosmetic steps. However, I'll just give you one example and that will explain, although that example is relevant, but still those things are already being done, but we have to go on a massive scale. When Pannu Akil cantonment was not there 30, 40 years from now, that was the most lawless area of Sindh. Vehicles could not pass through that area and go to Sakhar or to Kashmir without convoys. When a garrison was created, people were created, the jobs were created, employment was created, people came to know that there is other things to do except dacoities. So what I mean to say is, now is the time. Although Pakistan Army has created garrisons in Khuzdar, they have enhanced the capacity of military. What I think and what I've been saying is, we have to involve the Baloch people, we have to give them development, we have to take the industries there.
Sir, which
free
people?
zones.
I mean, you have the government of PTI, then you had the government of PML, earlier than that Pakistan People's Party, and prior to that it was PML-Q. 4 different federal governments, sir. They all claim that, you know, somebody would talk about the NFC award, somebody would talk about more money to be given to Balochistan, few would give a lot of extra support to the MPAs. God knows where that money has gone. Nothing has been spent. Mayor Sahab, let me take this point now to our third guest, Ambassador Naela Chohan Sahiba. She's joined us on the telephone. Now, Naela Sahiba, a couple of points now. First one is about, obviously we do understand that Pakistan is going through a phase where we will have a lot of issues, a lot of problems. I still remember when Rehman Malik Saab was the interior minister in the government of Pakistan People's Party. So once I was having a word with him, and this is, he has also mentioned in various television programs also, and he said that we will talk to all those Balochis who are not happy with the federation. Good enough, sir. So they said we'll talk to Bramdad Bukti, we'll talk to Harbayar Murray, we'll talk to for Mehran Baloch for that matter, Dr. Alan Nazar. These are practically the terrorists. These are people who are financed by the Indians. They have their own agenda. They live in England, most of them live in Switzerland. Ma'am, now we know, we have identified the problem, but obviously there has to be a problem which is much deeper, which hasn't been addressed in years and decades. Don't you think the time has come that we should stop addressing the other issues? We should go after the real problem, the real issue, and we should make sure that it has to be taken care of. Otherwise, there is no point treating the symptoms if you're not looking after the real disease. Your take?
I totally agree with you, Faisal. You're very right that we have to address the problem in its roots. Rhetoric will not help, and we have been trying to mellow them down. We do have representatives, political representatives from these areas. So I think that they also have to play their role, because if they are representatives of the people, then they have to take that development to their areas so that people have more sense of participation. Our enemies have benefited from this gap and have exploited it. We all know which are the countries which are not in favor of CPEC and how they have been funding them. If you look at this BLA and all these people, look at their uniforms, look at their arms, look at their training. I mean, they are fully trained to destroy. And we have been closing our eyes on it. You're very right. We have to now take the bull by its horns.
Man, who's going to do that? Because certain issues cannot be sorted out by the use of military. They have a certain procedure which they follow. They have a certain task. If it is given to them, they have a proper way to do it, to go after. That's the tactical approach, ma'am. When you look at the top notch, that is where the real issues should be addressed, at the top, I'm saying. If the issues are political, why aren't we sorting them out politically?
You're very right. Military is not a solution. Rather, it will complicate the problem. So
all
it
the
has
Baloch
to be
leaders, whomsoever I've spoken to, ma'am, from whatever party, they said, please put a check on the number of cantonments. Please reduce the number of pickets because we are harassed. That's what they say. Now, if those pickets are removed, obviously law and order situation develops. Then you have this levies concept, ma'am. These people are, in fact, on the payroll of the government, but looking after certain people and their interests. I mean, wherever you just dig deep, there is a problem.
You're right, but you see, the thing is that development and security have to go hand in glove. Uh, Pure cantonments and military, although imperative, you cannot, underscore the importance of their presence, and you have to salute their sacrifices. So, not to say that they shouldn't be there; they should be there, but it should be supported by developmental, and infrastructure development projects in the region. We have been talking about, ROZs, industrial zones, all those things which have yet not come on the ground. We have yet not given that employment to the local population. We have yet not taken education to the local population. And these nefarious elements always somehow are so equipped. They do bomb blasts, they do suicide bombing, they do all sorts of things to deter the implementation of development because they are limited, they are few, but they have all the arms and they have all the training to counter the government's efforts. So the government's efforts have now to be reinforced not only by the security forces but also from the economic and developmental perspective. We have to do, agricultural projects there, educational projects there. We have sustainable development goals which have to be implemented all over the country.
Ma'am,
Somehow Balochistan
those
hasn't
measures
got its
are for
share.
those people who are not terrorists.
Gee,
But the problem is this certain group is financed, is
true,
equipped, is trained, is
true.
looked after by certain intelligence agencies.
You're very right.
It is raw. It could be Mossad. It could be CIA. It could be
True.
so many others. I mean, because Afghanistan is a hub. That's the problem.
Very true. So the Afghan, regime, whatever it is, also has to now take its responsibility in countering these elements because they have been using them.
Ma'am, they have no capacity, they have no will. That's the problem. Now, coming to you, Mr. PJ Mir Saab. Yes, there are issues in Balochistan. But whenever you switch on the Indian channels, because I really watch those and I try to understand what exactly are they thinking, what exactly are they up to. And honestly speaking, Prime Minister was there, sir, to inaugurate something which was a gift for the people of Balochistan, the main road, four-way proper track and everything that is going to benefit the Balochi people because this is going to be till Chaman. What I'm saying is that was that a message to the government that see, no matter what you do, we have an agenda and we are going to make sure that whatever ideology we have, should be felt in Pakistan. Because it wasn't a normal target, sir. The Chinese were killed, and these were the professors talking about a certain ideology, just like Marxism for that matter, Confucius. Your take, sir.
Look, you know what Mr. Janjua was talking about. I'll take out 2 points from there. One, he hit the nail on the head. All those people he named from Balochistan, they need to be coming out and informing the prime minister. Look, this is what the incumbent problem is. Now, these problems have been there for a long time, but we never involved the actual Balochi leadership to come along and sit and tell us what the problem is. I was very closely connected in a lot of things in Balochistan when General Musharraf was there, and that is a period where the local Balochis were coming in Quetta, whilst the Maris were hitting Quetta with their rockets. Now, what you need to do is basically, all these people who Mr. Janjua has named, they should come out and give the actual problems. What is the problem? Now, as we've mentioned, as Naila just mentioned, people coming out with uniforms and things like that. I mean, this has got to stop. And at the end of the day, there is no compromise when state security is at risk. So whatever actions need to be taken, they have to be taken. Now, as far as military is concerned, military is not cut out for these things. What we need to do is upgrade our counterterrorism approach. What we need to do is our intelligence services like the ISI, we need to have them right up top with the latest equipment to to work as what the FBI, CIA, Mossad, Savak, and KGB and MI6 and whatever, what all they do. Because this is what these agencies do. They look out for insurgency. They look out for disturbances, not for political gains. So what we need to be doing is getting at least our agency right up to the top as far as counterterrorism is concerned. But what we do is we lack, we slow down, we don't really follow it up, and this is one of the reasons we don't go forward. We've got to be focused, Faisal. Until and unless we are not focused, and like I said, education is your basic form of focusing a defocused nation, particularly in Balochistan, where we have people. It is such a vast area. No government, and I tell you, no government really in today's times has done anything for them. Now, it was a good thing that, Prime Minister Shahbaz has gone there and reassured that we'll do this, this, this. But Balochis don't need lip service anymore. They need jobs. They need industry. They need, all kinds of corporate sectors to be built in that area. Why don't we do it? We've got to be doing it, not just by giving lip service. We'll do this and we'll do that. I think as quickly as possible, once we start, all these industrialists who go into Faisalabad or Karachi or Lahore, send them to Balochistan. Tell them, I'm sorry, but this is the area. We'll give you a lot of subsidies. We'll give you a
Sir,
lot of areas.
Punjabi
We'll give you a lot of
professors have been
concessions.
shot. Non-Baloch individuals were particularly targeted, sir. So many cases. There's a long list I can show you, sir. So the problem is much deeper, I would say, sir. PJ sir?
Yes, it is. It is, Faisal. It is much deeper because don't forget, foreign agencies are working on it. I mean, why would a patriotic Baloch come along and fight his own soldiers? They won't do that. But you have foreign hands in it. You mentioned in your prologue, how did that lady get that kind of an explosive? I mean, after all, explosives are not cheap. So where did she get it from? So obviously somebody's funding them from somewhere, and then they come along and have these people execute them. Now they might be enticing them. I remember very closely with when Rehman Malik used to get information as Interior Minister, the children were being sold out for 3 lakh of rupees. 3 lakh of rupees, children were being sold out to become, these
Suicide bombers.
bombers. So we need to be educating them, Faisal. That is the only thing. How long can we fight these people? We'll continue fighting them. We'll wiping them out. But what will happen is, in the long run, your animosity, your enmity will grow within your own social infrastructure. And that again will culminate and come up to a boiling point. So we've got to stop all of that for the next 40, 50 years and start educating and arresting 10 to 15-year-old boys and girls into education. And that is our ultimate answer.
That should have been done much earlier. Things would have been so different by now. I still remember when President Musharraf was talking about different areas, A area, B area, if you remember, Mir Saab, and then he said, well, you will be having certain cantonments.
Yes.
Army is supposed to be looking after the affairs on the border, but unfortunately, when we talk about Balochistan and those who have traveled and those who understand the dynamics, they would know that perhaps the role of the military is much more than the role of the politicians, unfortunately, sir. Because every time there are certain names, certain families, either they would be a part of PPP or PMLNQ or perhaps some other parties. That is the issue. But I think they have to start thinking about their people, those who are suffering. There is a lot of problem there. You talk about clean drinking water. I remember as a kid, we
Faisal.
used to talk about Kares. That is an obsolete phenomena now. Things have changed. People have internet everywhere. It's a different world now. Mir Sahab, quick comment, then I'll go to Ambassador Sahiba. Ji, please.
Faisal, People's Party, PMLN, PTI, and the rest of the, the parties, Look, you've got to be united on one stand. Pakistan, yes, have all the differences you want. It doesn't matter. These things happen. But as far as national unity is concerned, we've got to be on the same footing. And unfortunately, everybody has their own perspective. And this is the reason a third person comes along and takes advantage of our own system. So we've got to get out of this, this myopic views and really get up front and think about nationalism. And that is where we'll succeed. All of us, all of the political parties, and they'll be doing a great service to our country. But that needs to be done. But the question is, your question is, who'll do it? Well, same as my question. Who'll do it?
Exactly. Now, Naila Saiba, first of all, ma'am, obviously, if there is a foreign hand, foreign funding, that makes a lot of sense. We have presented so many dossiers to not only the United Nations chief, to USA, and so many other platforms that we have used. We have categorically mentioned that, listen, these are the documents, just have a look, and you'll understand what's going on in Pakistan. Why is India doing all this? And obviously, one thing is for sure. If the Chinese were not killed in this particular blast, we would have thought otherwise. But they were the target. That means that somebody is there to make sure that CPEC or BRI, OBOR as they call it, that should be sabotaged. Now we have also learned that the authority that was made in the previous government and the earlier General Bajwa was made the head of that particular authority. Now I've learned that that authority is not going to be there. Obviously, that is going to affect CPEC in one way or the other. Secondly, ma'am, when the Chinese interest is in Pakistan, ma'am, there is a limit to everything. I'll just give you a quick example. My sister passed away on the last Eid. That was the Bakra Eid, as we call that. And ma'am, I went to CMH Pindi, and when we were keeping her body in that particular place where they just keep it till the time you do the rest of the procedures, ma'am, on the left side, there were pictures of those Chinese, ma'am, who were killed, the engineers and the technicians in that attack in the northern areas. And ma'am, all of them were, I mean, the pictures were there, they were all in black suits, red ties and white shirts, all young, basically, must have been 40s or something like that. About 16 or 15 of them, I remember, and they were in those large draw kind of, that equipment where they keep them. And ma'am, they were there for about a month, maybe more, because Chinese were so disturbed. That's what I learned. Ma'am, how long will they keep on suffering? How long will they keep on being the target of all the adversaries? And at the end of the day, perhaps, I'm sure the Chinese ambassador must have said something to the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister, Mr. Bilawal. But the thing is that, do you think it's a wise approach as far as the government is concerned?
Well, firstly, my condolences to you for the loss of your sister. Yes, I mean, the gesture that the Prime Minister has done is a very important one. But the point is that both China and Pakistan understand that there are certain regional countries that are undermining it viciously, the CPEG and the OBOR or BRI. And because we understand the dynamics, and once we take action against the culprits, that would further reinforce the government's credibility on its commitment to continue with CPEC. Authorities keep on changing, but the focus on CPEC hasn't been reduced. The methodology might be different. So let it not be understood as though this government has no interest or the former government didn't have. Pakistan always had interest, and we will continue our commitment to CPEC and to OBOR. But we have to talk to Chinese also to make them understand that we are seriously committed to it and we will not let it happen, especially killing of the Chinese who are here to help us. So it's unfortunate, but this is a very vicious, propaganda by deed by these countries which are sponsoring these terrorists to attack Chinese. And this is a very clever and a vicious way of doing so. But we have to now get out of the rhetoric and do actual action against these elements. And on that, we have to have all the political parties on board, and they should also state their commitment to address these issues of terrorism, of these non-state actors that are operating in our territory.
Janjua Saab, don't you think if there is a political problem, it should be handled politically? Ukraine has a political issue with the Russians, could have been sorted out, but obviously they're into a war, and we all know what is the reason for that and how the West is supporting. They want to make Russia bleed, simple as that. Whether the political parties are on the same page or not, sir, I don't really care, because everybody has their own point of view. But sir, when it comes to the national security, when it comes to the foreign policy, when it becomes the issue of your defense, or perhaps something more important, don't you think the joint session should have been immediately called? We haven't heard much from Maulana Saab, sir, to be very honest. Not even a single word that he has uttered against the attacks or against the Islamophobia. I mean, if you have a beard which is 1.5 feet long, then, and if you are being the head of a political party or a religious party, then you have certain responsibilities to fulfill, sir. Forget about the ministries for a moment. Think about the real issues and the real problems. The man has been the head of the committee of the Kashmir issue. Nothing has been done. I spoke to a few people, he said, well, we are not ready to talk to Wahhabis. I swear, this is another issue. Nobody ever thought that if this man is not even welcomed by people living over there, what the hell is he going to do? And secondly, sir, don't you think, forget about politics for a while, I mean, these religious groups should come together and at least, you know, they should be on the same page when it comes to issues like these. A suicidal bombing is haram. It's killing yourself.
Faisal, can I make a frank comment?
Sir, you can definitely do that.
You are a very brave man sitting on a government-sponsored television station.
So truth matters more to me, I guess.
And if I speak the truth, probably somebody will not call me on the television station again. Frankly, the problem lies with the politicians. And as I said, and then PJ also repeated it, all these politicians, I'm sorry to say, they're part of the problem, and now they're sitting in the government. If they don't get their act together, Balochistan is going. However, me and PJ and Ambassador
I'm sure you know Brigadier Nadir, right?
Yeah, I know.
So, yeah, well, you know exactly what I'm going to say.
Industrialization and development of Balochistan is the only way. However, unfortunately, they cannot do it standalone in isolation. They have to be given the protection and the security. And unfortunately, in the Balochistan security environment, that protection and security cannot be provided by the levies. By the way, I have just come back from Balochistan literally a week ago. I was on a 10-day trip and I traveled length and breadth of Balochistan. I was doing a government-sponsored project, doing security risk assessments. So I've traveled all over Balochistan and I've spoken to people, especially on these terrorism and all these issues. So obviously I've served there, I've worked there in the past, and now I'm going back there again as well. What I'm trying to say is the problem lies with the politicians. As the Ambassador Sahib was also saying, and PJ was also saying, the problem is not going to be solved by military solutions only. Military can only come and assist you, and they are doing. We can make cantonments just to make sure there is enough protection. However, military cannot do everything for you. You have to do it yourself. I was in Balochistan last week when I was talking to them, and I said, a few years ago when there was incidents of miners being killed, I said, it's the responsibility of the mine owners to provide protection to their laborers. Army and the police and the levies cannot come and stand on the mine mouth and protect.
Sir, army did whatever they could have done. I mean, Chavalang is one example. I remember General Farooq was there, who retired later. I mean, he did a brilliant, provided jobs to 5,000 people. They were earning a decent amount of money. Their kids were sent to school. That area was protected. The Murray tribe, and there was another tribe, if I'm not wrong, there was Murray and one more. They had issues. That was sorted out.
Let me give you one thing. Because I traveled last week, just outside Quetta is a neighborhood called Kuchlak. is a massive neighborhood, all kacha homes, infested with Afghanis, all migrants, most of them migrants, and mother of all problems. Everything starts from there. Why can't the government hold the bull by the horns? Pick them up, remove them. And that is a stronghold of JUI. Unfortunately, Maulana Sahib should come forward and say, we will take care of this problem. Register those people. Send the Afghans back. Now the Americans have gone. Why are the Afghans sitting here? So there are ways, and the politicians can only do it. Akhtar Jan Mengal Sahib and Shahzahan Bukti, they are the most suitable people. Khalid Maksi, they are the most suitable people. They have inroads into the people. They should be asked, by the way, what the government can do, what the military and the law enforcement can do. They can make a national action plan. They can make a national security policy. But its implementation, it has to be done with the collaboration of the entire political spectrum, all the political parties, whether they are in government or not.
The vested interests, they suffer if they do it. That's the problem.
It is true vested interest, and unfortunately, because of most of the tribal leaders, most of the Baloch tribal leaders that we are talking about, none of them lives in Quetta or Balochistan for that matter. They all live in Karachi, defense of Clifton. They only come there for maybe a day or two. So they are not connected to their people, but they are ruling their people. That's the problem. And unfortunately, when you go there to Balochistan, common Baloch blames the army. What has army got to do with this? It is your own people who have taken away the funds
That's
and
the
not given
easy
to
way
the people.
out to take off the responsibility.
Development funds for the MPAs going into their pockets and not being put down on where they belong.
When Zardari Sahib was in power, sir, I remember the government, PJ Sahib, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I was just told to wrap up the show, but I'll give you one more, or maybe in a minute and a half. I remember when Mr. Raisani was the chief minister, a good one, interesting one, I would say, and his government of Balochistan was in a problem. Whatever game was played by Mr. Zardari, eventually we all learned that about 60 to 65 crore rupees per MPA was given to them. God knows where that money went. Just imagine 65 into 65 and these many crore rupees, not even 1% I can bet was spent, sir. So, sir, karen to karen kya, PJ Sahab?
So the thing is, get your national character back. It can't be a degree is a degree, but they say a dollar is a dollar. So at the end of the day, whether it's 5,000 or whatever, I mean, people are going to be tempted by that. So where is Pakistan? And where is, our national, when we speak about integrity and credibility, where is that? And Faisal, that is where we lack. Look, at the end of the day, will people remember you that you got 65,000 rupees or 65 crores or whatever for doing something? Rather, people remember you for what you have delivered, and it continues for centuries for your descendants and for the people of the country to appreciate. Remember one thing. Even today, 30 years of General Franco, your Basque movement is still up north. But their security, I'll give you an example. I went there up north and we were some people, they stopped our car. And God knows how they knew we were there in that small village. And they asked us, show your passports, where are you coming from, what are you doing, and things like that. We don't do that here. And particularly in Balochistan. You know what Mr. Janjua is saying, that people are living in, there's mud huts and things like that. Surely somebody must have been coming there and talking to them from outside, because they're the people who are to be recruited. So we need to be looking at links, at links, crucial links, where we know that the repercussions will be fine. Look at Kulbhushan. How did we catch him? So thing is, you've got a lot of sleepers all over the country, but we need to beef up our intelligence, as well as upgrading them. Our intelligence agencies.
I think, sir,
I'm sorry
I think
to say,
PJ Sahab, priorities should be set and we should know exactly what
Yes.
needs to be done on immediate basis, on ASAP basis. At the end of the day, lives do matter. All those who were killed in that bomb blast. I mean, this is not the first time or not the first bomb blast that we have witnessed. There have been thousands. But anyway, sir, Mir Sahab, thank you very much, and we'll keep on having you in our program, sir, to get more update on the related issues. And ma'am, it was a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for your time also. Janjua Sahab, thank you so much, sir, for your presence as well. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you inshallah tomorrow. Till then, you take good care. Good afternoon.